But like I said, we have a full agenda, so we want to dive in. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the 2026 Local Health Department Academy of Science National Conference. So glad to have you here. There are just so many public health innovators and rock stars who signed up to be here today. So thank you so much for giving some of your time. We know that everybody is busy, and this is probably just one of the many hats you wear. So thank you for giving space to be here today and learn with us. So this is the third annual national conference. Um, and it's just so exciting because each year it has grown, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in the near future. But this is brought to you by the local health department Academy of Science. Um, this conference is once a year, and it is made free so that it is accessible and that everyone can come together to learn. We are looking forward to spending a few hours with you, connecting and sharing more about this work. Before I go any further, I just want to quickly introduce myself because you're going to see me a lot today. So my name is Jessica Smith. I am a public health program manager at the Wichita State Community Engagement Institute our institute is based out of Wichita, Kansas. And I'm also one of the individuals that's on the newly named Academy of Science National Librarian team. I'll talk more about that later at the end of the day today, so I won't dive into that. But I did just want to let you know that, again, you're going to see and hear a lot of me if you are involved in this work. I'm going to be your main moderator in the main room today. And I want to just get some things kicked off to a smooth start. So let's start with some Zoom logistics. I realize that most of us live and breathe Zoom these days, but as a few reminders, you are all muted upon entry, but you will be able to unmute. So just a quick request that you stay muted until we are at the Q&A, any Q&A portion. Um, you are welcome to have your camera on or off, whatever you're most comfortable with, especially in the main room, because there are so many of us. If you want to take that camera break, feel free to do so. It would be great during breakout sessions later if you could switch your camera on when the groups are a smidge smaller, at the very least, maybe if you're asking a question. Also, if you don't have that tech, no worries. We're just glad that you're here. Um, you are able to use the chat feature. If you need anything, please send chats to the host or co-host. If you see anybody with the WSU or Wichita State University after their name, they can help you out. So there's a few of us here in the room today, and just feel free to message them directly, and we can help you with any tech issues if you have those. Um, if you need to turn on your transcription for your own benefit, that is something that is available to you so that you can follow along more closely. And then later, there is going to be an option to choose breakout rooms. If if tech is not your thing, don't worry. We've got people here that are going to help you and will get you to where you want to go. So there's a few Zoom logistics, etiquette reminders, basic things. Um, let's keep going. So just a quick pulse check. We want to see who's in the room today. When you registered, we asked you a couple of questions. So I just have a couple of things where you can see from those who registered, which, by the way, as of this morning, I think, Jake, you said we hit 700 as we hit this morning, which, wow, that is amazing. So again, thank you all for your interest and commitment to this work. But let's take a look at who's in the room. So this is an amazing spread. We are from every time zone, and I will say, I'm just going to call out myself. Alaska is not on this map, and I believe I am the only person that represents the lonely dot that was in Alaska because I am currently based out of Alaska. So I didn't zoom out of the map to include that, but we have just about every time zone represented. So whether you are like me and you are here bright and early with your extra cup of coffee, or you are already thinking about lunch, we are very glad that you're here today. If you're curious about this map, the darker colors are just mean a little bit more concentration, so higher registration numbers in the general area. So again, out of the 700 folks registered, we're from everywhere. So we're so glad to have you, no matter where you're from. We also asked you if you were a member of the local health department Academy of Science, which this is important because, kind of lets us know how much we need to talk about who we are and what we do. And hopefully for those of you that said, I'm not, or I really don't know, hopefully we just saw you at the pre-conference session where Jake Holdaway, who is the program director for the Academy of Science, did a thorough and deep dive into the history and who AoS is. If you missed that, but you think that's useful information, don't worry, that recording will be made available with all of the other ones on the AoS website at a later date. But there really is a good chunk. So, well over about 80, or sorry, I can't do math this morning because it is early. About 70% of folks are either not members or aren't sure. So again, we're so glad that you are here today joining us. And then there's about 34% of you that are members. So thank you for your continued commitment to the AoS and the work that you do. Um, if you are new and you weren't here and you weren't able to join, just a quick recap on who AoS is. So um, AoS is it is a grassroots movement, and it is really local public health and state health departments and states coming together to do important work. And AoS supports state and local public health professionals by creating, refining, and sharing data collection tools, building a strong, smarter foundation for public health. I mean, this is what we're all trying to do, right? So, yeah, in a nutshell, we're an organization, multiple state chapters. Um, Email us later if you don't know if you have a chapter or not, or what the history of AoS is in your state. But this was created to support local public health professionals. So, kind of the core of it is there is a repository or a library. So, you'll hear us use the term library and librarians to refer to certain roles. These are well designed surveys working to build a culture of sharing and kickstarting this nationwide movement where primary public health data collection is more standardized within states and across the country. So, if this is new to you, definitely encourage you to check out the AoS website when you have a chance. I think Emily's going to go ahead and drop that link in the chat for your benefit. And if not, again, you can always reach out to us later. All right. Before we go any further, I just want to say thank you so much to the conference design team. This would not be possible without this team. They are so creative. They put in a lot of hard work to get here today and to help shape this day. So this is a lot of state librarians who came together along with some other core staff to coordinate this agenda, reach out to speakers, just be here today. And you're going to see these folks today during sessions because they'll be helping moderate the breakout sessions today. So I just want to say thank you to this design team. Your commitment is phenomenal, and we really couldn't do this without you. So thank you so much. All right. I'm carefully watching time because, like I said, we do have a packed agenda today. So right now, we are in the middle of this welcome and conference overview. I am going to make sure we stay on time so that we can give all of the time to our keynote speaker, Cristin, which we will introduce her shortly. And then we are going to take a quick break. You will notice we are a fan of breaks. We want to encourage you to take care of yourselves and either take the screen break or know that you have built-in time so you can reduce the amount of task switching you have to do and know that you'll have time to check those emails, make those phone calls, whatever you might need to do. So you get a nice 20-minute break this morning. We'll do breakout sessions. We'll have a lunch break for everybody. And we'll talk more about these breakout sessions in the future, but just know that again, you get to self-select into them. So it's gonna be a really great morning. And I promise it doesn't matter if you are brand new, if you had never heard of AoS, but you thought this looks neat, all of these sessions are going to be amazing. You really can't go wrong. And also, if you want to make a more informed decision, Emily, I think maybe now would be a great time to drop in the program for today, which has more of the session descriptions as well as speaker biographies. So if you want speaker bios or additional program descriptions, that'll be in the chat. You should be able to download that, and then you can make that more informed decision. So that's what our morning looks like. Keynote, take a break, come back for breakout sessions. We'll go to lunch. And then when we come back, we'll have a featured afternoon session with some of my colleagues, Dr. Tara Gregory and Dr. Sarah Jolly from the Community Engagement Institute. They are brilliant. Every time I hear them speak, I learn something new and different. So I highly encourage you to be on for that session if you can. We'll take another break and then we'll do a final round of breakout sessions and some closing words along with an update about what you can see or what you can look forward to related to AoS in this next year. So that is what our morning an afternoon look like together? All right. Wow, that was really fast. So I hope you could all keep up. I really wanted to make sure we had plenty of time for our keynote speaker, and I didn't want to take any time away from her. And to introduce our keynote speaker, we have Gwen with the Michigan Association for Local Public Health, uh, who is going to introduce her. So Gwen, would you like to hop in and introduce Cristin?
There we go. Good morning,
Wonderful.
everyone. Sorry, a little bit of trouble with my mute button there. But I'll introduce myself quickly. My name is Gwen Tiedoff. I work for the Michigan Association for Local Public Health, and I'm on the leadership team for the Michigan chapter of the Academy of Science. I am so happy to be here this morning. I think it's so awesome that so many of you are here, and I'll just reiterate the thank you to the planning committee for this conference. So I have the honor of introducing Cristin Larder, my friend and colleague who works for the Ingham County Health Department. So Cristin has been a senior community epidemiologist there since 2021, where she leads a team that provides epidemiological support to both public health programs and the county's network of federally qualified health centers.
Great.
Previously, she spent, sorry. Previously, she spent 3 years assisting local health departments with maternal child health, substance use disorder, and health equity assessments as an independent consultant. She has also worked at the Michigan Department for Health and Human Services, coordinating the pregnancy risk assessment monitoring system for 4 years, followed by 4 years as the maternal, infant, and early childhood home visiting epidemiologist. She has an MS in epidemiology from Michigan State University with a concentration in reproductive and perinatal health. So thank you so much for joining us today, Cristin, and I will pass it over to you.
Thank you, Gwen. Let's see, just 1 second while I get my slides here. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. To kick things off, we're going to take a journey through our shared landscape as public health data collectors, where we're going as an association, and some of the milestones we've achieved along the way. And thank you for sharing the statistics because I know that we have a diverse group. And from any given year, we can see up to at 40 to almost 50% of turnover in the field in general. So we're constantly bringing in new individual staff members to the fold, even in our established chapters. So for those of you who are here for the first time, hope you had a chance to join our intro session with Jake, our program director. If not, there'll be many opportunities to learn more about AoS moving forward. All right. The local health department, Academy of Science, or AoS, as we're affectionately known amongst ourselves, is the National Association of Local Public Health Data Collectors. This includes a wide breadth of public health expertise and knowledge. We have a lot of epidemiologists, quality improvement coordinators, analysts, and other quantitative-minded folks who come from a lot of different areas and backgrounds. We're a grassroots collective. We're championed by our state associations of county and city health officials. For example, MELF here in Michigan. But those are really the backbones of our state chapters. And we're mobilized by our national board, which includes states who have been onboarded. And although our public health infrastructure varies widely from state to state, and even county by county in some instances, we all have a shared vision and mission for our work together. So our mission, in a nutshell, is to unify local health departments, or LHDs, nationwide through collaborative measurements. Our mission is to empower local health departments with a library of shared public health data measurements so we can foster transparency, collaboration, and efficiency while we build a new culture of working together. Before we dig deeper into our shared values that help ground us in our day-to-day work, I wanted to take just a moment to highlight some of the milestones we've achieved since our last conference. First of all, Jessica did mention this, but we we're able to onboard our first national librarian, Jessica Smith, in Kansas at Wichita State. And that was through a collaborative effort with the CDC, specifically Alvin Schultz, who we met at the NACCHO conference in Detroit back in 2024. I'm not sure how many of you were with us then, but we were happy as Michigan to host the national conference for NACCHO that year. And our partners at NACCHO really do help provide the national visibility that we've been able to achieve. So welcome to Jessica. We're very excited to have her with us because back in 2024, our state librarians came together, who are all volunteer, by the way. Our state librarians have, for the most part, full-time jobs on top of what they're trying to accomplish in their roles as our librarians for each state chapter. So it was really crucial to have Jessica come on board to help provide support and not just indexing all of the thousands of measurements that we have across the country from all of our members, but to provide some continuity as we see change in staff, as we're bringing on new states, and provide technical assistance and guidance for our state librarians. So welcome to Jessica. Similarly, we have this year been able to onboard 2 new states. So welcome Wisconsin and Iowa to the fold. Building on this momentum, AoS is actually going to be presenting next month, February 24th, at, let me see if I get this right, the Council of SACHOs meeting in DC. And Alvin from CDC will be there to join us, or will be there with us to help spread the word to additional states that we can keep building and growing our grassroots effort. And we had the third milestone we have here is our partners at Wichita State and Kansas helped us convene a National Librarian Summit, where librarians and board members from across the country were able to come together. Virtually, we had amazing team there at Wichita State that helped us pivot at the last minute to a virtual strategic planning session. I'll talk a little bit about that later and some of the work that came out of that. Let's see, but from the summit, we revisited our core values and we're able to streamline them a bit moving forward because the work that we've been doing, I'm sure that all of you in public health know, it changes from day to day, and that's why having AoS as a collective of folks communicating with each other, leaning on each other, is such an important role moving forward. This work has, with this strategic planning, has fed into the kickoff of an AoS board development committee, which I won't get into the details of, but I just wanted to let you all know that there is a small group of dedicated individuals that as we grow and onboard new states every year, we're going to need to be responsive and resilient in terms of growing our governance structure. So that kind of work is happening behind the scenes. I just wanted to give a shout out to everyone who's joined that newly committed work group, which I believe Jessica will be convening in just a few weeks. So that's some of the work that's going on behind the scenes as our SACHOs are bringing more and more states into the fold. The other big, huge thing that came out of our meeting Alvin at the CDC has been a collaboration with his branch of the CDC that oversees the epidemiology and laboratory capacity grant. Each of the states received this, and we'll hear a little bit more from Alvin, I believe, later on in the day. But this has been in addition to the National Librarian support. Alvin's working with us to operationalize how to get more input from locals across the 50 states in the new landscape of our 21st century field of developing public health issues. Let's see. Finally, our conference design team has been touched on a bit here, but I want to give a shout out to them once again because we are today sitting here launching our 3rd annual conference, which is the most well attended to date. So thank you again to everyone who's been able to bring us all together today. All right. So the AoS values, I really love talking about these values and examples of showing them in our day-to-day work. One of our greatest strengths as an association is that AOS's values were born from the underlying principle that healthy scientific discourse and debate is essential to achieving our shared vision. We know that our relationships with each other, including our ability to discuss and debate in good faith, even when we don't agree on the technical details of something, is the foundation we'll need to be able to successfully tackle tomorrow's emerging issues. And we know that when we gain trust, when we share data with each other, when we share the data development process from developing the surveys and the measure specifications to co-designing our data governance structures, all the way to disseminating the final results for our counties, cities, or regions policymakers to be able to make action. And as I mentioned, at last year's Librarian Summit, librarians and board members came together to reaffirm our original AOS values. And we streamlined them and grouped them into four main categories. And this really, for me, is much easier to wrap my head around than each one individually, because we noticed that there were some themes that ran through the 12 or so separate values that we ascribe to here. So our first grouping or our first category theme is that every health department matters. We know that each local health department, no matter how small, is a sovereign entity, and we're all best positioned to know our community's needs. We know that when we work together, in our second theme of United We Succeed, we know that when we work together through shared language and collective action, we can share the workload across all of our jurisdictions instead of having to each be working in a vacuum next to each other. And that helps us fill in the capacity and gaps that we might have from community to community. Some local health departments maybe could work a little faster alone, but then we'd be missing the smaller communities, or we wouldn't be able to share some of those capacities at the larger health departments, and bring along some of our smaller communities that maybe don't have the capacity or the local investment. So we know that we go farther alone, even though sometimes it might seem like just fulfilling the next request on our plate or just churning through that daily grind might be the fastest way to get things done. Really, one of our values at AOS is that sustained effort over time, that it's worth it in the long term to bring all our communities together. And then the last two speak more to the technical aspects of our values as an association. The measurement transparency one is one that's pretty close to my heart. One of my favorite features of public health is that we have a collaborative nature in our work. Unlike in the private sector, we're not competing for the best product or the market share. Our communities benefit more when we work together and we share our blueprints for how we're measuring outcomes, like diseases or overdoses or different health outcomes across organizations and levels of the public health structure. And then similarly to that, stewardship or being stewards of our measurements. That's another important characteristic of public health. And the public sector in general, really, is the multi-level nature of our structure. In AOS, we recognize that our local stewardship of our data and our measures is essential for building the culture of response to emerging and new issues, which we've seen a lot of in the past few years. I don't need to remind you all of that. And it helps us build resilience in the face of whatever tomorrow's new issues will be in this ever-changing landscape of human health and public health. And Gwen mentioned that I worked at the state of Michigan for many years, for 8 years. And one thing I learned at working at the state level is that there's at least three, and probably even more, depending on the situation, levels of analysis that policymakers need to be able to make effective decisions to address our public health issues. At the minimum, we have national, state, and local. There's usually more that include state, Senate, and jurisdictions or different political groupings or regions that we have even within our states or within the nation as well. AoS really fills the need to strengthen those cross-jurisdictional collaborations. And we kind of, I like to think of us as kind of a local level think tank for our regional and state decision makers to be able to come to see what's emerging or what we're seeing on the ground. Novel situations that occur in one or two communities often get lost when we're averaging things out over the state or national level. So that's one thing that MELF has helped us with in Michigan specifically, is helping build that culture of, yeah, we have a go-to group to talk to see what's emerging. And different groups, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, different groups at our state health department have really responded well to that here in Michigan. All right. So to those of us who've worked in public health for a while, we're familiar with the core missions, but I wanted to, for those of you who are new, show this CDC graphic that is a really good summary for those of you who are new to the field. As the Association of Public Health Data Collectors at the local level, AoS members are involved in all four of these crucial activities to detect and monitor new issues, investigate and respond, inform and disseminate our results and our recommendations, control measures, and then to be ready for the to respond to the next threat, often, most of the time, not knowing what that might be. And our public health in the 21st century demands that we modernize and streamline these basic functions to match the fast-paced world that we live in now. And an exciting new development I've noticed in the past few years is that national and state organizations and collaborative bodies are starting to recognize, or I should say, are recognizing more and more the importance of having the local level partners at the table, because we really are the front line. We're the people that that the community and even some of our public health professional partners that are outside of the government really look to as their first line of defense against disease and other ill outcomes in a health way or in a health context. All right. So to dig a little deeper into that, of course, the CDC has a graphic that gives an overview of our public health system. And as an epidemiologist, I'm a member of the Council of State and Territorial Epidemiologists. And I've definitely heard at the state, and even the CDC has a strong presence at those national conferences. In the last 3 years, I've noticed incredible steps towards including us in that particular field within our data collector broad umbrella of public health. But one thing I did want to mention in that is even though if you see here on the public health ecosystem, we have the states, tribes, localities, and territories. Local health departments might look on paper like a small subsection of one of the nodes of many partners in the public health ecosystem, which is true. But I think that we have a special gateway, or we're the closest to the problems in the communities. And when hospitals have an issue, or when we were in the middle of a pandemic and they were overflowing with their emergency departments, reaching out to their local public health departments was really their first line of defense, in that working together to be able to triage and on a population level the needs that came with that incredible demand on the services. So we're basically an essential touch point for state and federal decision makers who are much further removed from the constituencies we serve. So that's really my point there, is that local public health really is our first line defense, and we have that connection to the communities that we serve. That as a former state employee, it just isn't able to be there at the larger levels of government. So it's been really heartening over the past 3 or 4 years to see those relationships at the different local, state, and federal levels start to really meaningfully engage with each other of what building out that ecosystem and the network of our response will look like moving forward. And I'd like to tell you a little bit now about Michigan's journey as an AoS chapter. Um, I'll show you here a couple of maps. The one on the left is from MALF, our state show. And you can see that we have in the colored sections there, those are district health departments that cover multiple counties. Each of the gray counties have their county level health department. And then the purple dot down here in the corner under the thumb is Detroit, which is our one city health department within the state. So we have 45 local public health jurisdictions. Just to give you a little bit of context, we are a decentralized state, so we have a lot of leadership, maybe more so than some of the centralized states that have more of the state level broken down to region little structure. Although we do have on the right here the regional epidemiologists at the state health department. They're called they sit within the surveillance and infectious disease epidemiology unit, or sorry, I believe it's section within, and they work very closely within the Infectious Disease Bureau on things like the ELC grant, the Epi and Lab Capacity Grant. But they really are our liaisons to the state health department. And one thing I wanted to say is, well, they're not here today because we happen to have our Michigan ELC meeting right now. But I know if they were able to make it today, that our regional EPIs would very, very much give credit to the whole team, but specifically Joyce Lai, who is our regional epi down in the region 2 South, which covers the city of Detroit. She came on, oh gosh, I won't say how long she's been with the department, but she's been with us many years in terms of in public health, and her leadership has really been huge in transforming the relationship that this one team had, one team at the health department of the state, but a crucial team because it is the link to our local public health, our local health departments. And Joyce really tried to flip the script in years past before AoS was even, before Michigan even became on as a chapter. She really helped us change from a top-down model to a more collaborative space. So the rest of the regional epidemiologist team have worked under her informal leadership to help change the way that we work together. So we've had an incredible amount of, I guess, an olive branch coming from our state health department. And that's been a huge asset for us here in Michigan to help us develop our chapter. I would like to kind of shift gears a little bit to AoS Michigan chapter coming on. I believe it was 2019, right before the pandemic started. It was Marcia Mansray from Ottawa County, who's now retired, and Gwen and Malf, Norm Hess, the executive director there. Really, over the past 6 years, we've been able to, I would say, match that energy coming from our regional epidemiologists, and maybe even start to surpass it. So we've been able to, with Gwen being our main support, our driving force in the AoS chapter here in Michigan, have consistent monthly meetings for, oh my gosh, I think it's been 5 years already. So we've really been able to develop, with Gwen's support and structure, a culture of communication between our local public health. We're going to hear a great example of one of our success stories from Washtenaw County, which is Ann Arbor, the home of the University of Michigan, later this afternoon. But we've also been able to connect over issues ranging from immunization waivers in the county next door to me, here at Livingston County. We've had some incredible developments across different local health departments about using Alchemer to streamline their processes for school reporting of communicable diseases. And I think really the main highlight that we've been able to accomplish here in Michigan is having that shared working across our local jurisdictions. Because when I came to local public health here in Michigan 5 years ago, it really wasn't a thing outside of maybe one day there was an annual conference where we would see each other. There really wasn't a culture of reaching out to our data collectors and neighboring health departments, maybe on a project that we were specifically working on in a region, but on a day-to-day basis. It wasn't really something that was in our culture that we've really been able to develop since then. Let's see. So to wrap up a little bit here, um, building our relationships is really what's going to sustain us moving forward. And I think we've learned, at least in our Michigan chapter, and I hope that others in other states will have as great of a journey as we have here. But we've learned that our infrastructure works best with collaboration and explicit roles. So getting out of our comfort zones, I know as data collectors, we're not always extroverts. We don't always realize that the relationship part of what we do is important if we're more comfortable with numbers and information. But that's something that I've been able to kind of push myself a little bit in, and that I've had a lot of help from Gwen on that as well, and just connecting with others um, in our local chapter. And that's really kind of helped me pull out of my own loop or the next urgent thing on my plate and be able to look at larger patterns of like, wait, other people are coming across this. How many times have we seen this year? And Gwen and I will tally like, oh, so many, like, oh, seven health departments have mentioned this one particular issue this year. Maybe it's time that we connect with that team that works on that issue at the state health department and start introducing them to our members. So that connection and relationship building isn't always something that's explicit in for folks who are data collectors, but that we've learned through AoS is really what helps us get through and lighten the load to be able to distribute it throughout our organizations that have capacity at different times throughout the year and at different times. And similarly, long-term orientation is key. Like I said, we could individually maybe go a little bit faster and feel like we're getting further in the short term, but in the long term, knowing who has what resource, skill, knowledge, ability at each of our local health departments and keeping connected with those people will be really what helps us be resilient in the future when we have a brand new issue that no one's faced before. So for our federal partners who are here, our CDC and NACCHO and others who are at the national level, I just like to ask you, please keep listening to us and supporting our local health departments moving forward. We notice it and we really do appreciate it. And personally, I feel like local public health has been seen in a way that really I didn't feel at my entry into the field 20 years ago. And for our state partners, I just want to encourage you, please keep reimagining how we work together. Every state chapter is a little bit different, so not everyone has the exact structure or relationships that we have here in Michigan. But the thing that I think has really made us successful is that our partners at the state level are willing to come to the table and say, hey, we've been doing X for this many 20 years in a particular way, but we're willing to reimagine how we could work in a more responsive way, in a more efficient way. So please help us keep innovating with us. And then for our local partners, I just want to remind everybody, don't forget we have a leadership role. Sometimes it's very easy to just kind of get taken up with the flow of the hierarchical structure of that's inherent to government and thinking like, oh, the state or the CDC will step in and let us know what needs to be done, which in some cases that does happen. But I think sometimes we forget that we have agency, we have leadership, and our state and national partners are listening to us in a way that I think is unprecedented. Um, so I want to just wrap up by thanking everyone for being here, but also challenging you in the next month or so. Maybe do something or reach out to someone, reach out to your neighboring health department or your maybe your state health department, someone that cold call someone, email someone, and just ask them a question. It really getting out of our comfort zone and taking the bold steps to put ourselves out there to just try to make a connection or to connect with someone that we hadn't before. It really does pay off in the end, even if it's might be a little bit intimidating for us at first. Um, that's actually one thing that AoS I think has really helped me with personally. So I appreciate it. And Gwen, if we have any questions, I'd love to talk some more.
Yes, thank you so much, Kristen. If you have a question for Kristen, please use the chat or like raise your hand. I'll try to keep track of that. In the meantime, I have like kind of a lead question. Um, what have you noticed is either made possible or made easier by collaborating through our AOS chapter?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, Actually, one thing navigate, and this might not be the most obvious answer, but one thing has been navigating the bureaucracy of a state health department. That's something that, as personally, I have a bit of knowledge of how it works just because I worked inside of our particular one for 8 years. But there's always groups or individuals, and there's lots of, government has lots of gatekeepers. But having us come together and kind of talk through, well, I don't know anyone who works on this at the state level. Oh, but so and so does. And in making those connections and knowing who the appropriate person, because it's not always advertised at, you know, the state level of like this person can answer your question about this. So I think that's been really one of the surprising things that's been easier is finding who to connect with at the state, because as much as you and Norm know about the state health department, you have the broad scope, so you don't always know the details about what each individual person or unit works on.
Thank
I'll,
you.
I'll ask a tough question. A lot of people don't know that Kristen is the Michigan AOS board member representing, and in Michigan, every local health department is an AOS member, and you have the support of the state association. That wasn't always the case. So starting from the humble five or six larger that said, okay, we're going to meet monthly. What did it take culturally to change and say, we're going to sync monthly. We're going to put our tools in a common spot. Like what you've been here for 5 years, or 4 or 5 years watching it come together. What, as a leader of that, what have you seen from that?
Hmm. You know what? That's a really good question, Jake. And the answer to it is really the new generation of epidemiologists, of health analysts, of folks that were coming out of school right into their first public health job at the local level. It was almost like I don't almost a demand. The no, sheer number of people who said, "Oh, you've worked in public health. Oh, you're not brand new." Um, I just started getting people coming up to me asking me about that. So in Michigan, it was there was a hunger for it, really. Folks were getting in their first job, being oftentimes the only person at their county or their district that had the duties or the responsibilities of data collection, and not having a mentor, not having anyone to guide them through that and being brand new to the field. And so it was fairly, yeah, I would say it was fairly easy because it was that new generation of folks coming in and really looking for this type of community to be able to come together.
And I think that's unique. It's not unique to just the Michigan chapter, but going through COVID, we saw such a changeover in people retiring and new people coming in. The chapter saw, I mean, even the leadership of just I'm leaving public health or we're coming in a new workforce, um, and organizing, just them knowing who does what measurement. Not every local health department does every measurement strong. Who are the leaders and shakers in each state? So yeah, it's pretty interesting to see the Michigan chapter evolve and new leaders coming in.
Mhm.
But I also think this new generation is more sharing and wanting to get out of the silos and seekers of truth. Um, Michigan was represented. I mean, Livingston County this year was the NACCHO model practice for how to do the immunization waiver form. It was recognized nationally. It came out of your chapter as well. I mean, I I think that other chapters could learn from the culture of Michigan in terms of how to work together, and it's hard to put it into a bottle. But
Mhm.
I don't know how you answer that question, but I think other state chapters could lean on that. I think sometimes as data collectors, we're kind of nerdish a little bit and not really great at organizing. And I don't know, Gwen, maybe you could say that from being the state chapter, like the librarian, infusing that culture of syncing on a monthly basis. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say like I definitely inherited um from Marcia Mansory, who Kristen mentioned earlier in her keynote. I definitely inherited um like the enthusiasm and the um like seeing the need for this type of organization. So I was very lucky to have someone who kind of ushered me in to the organization so I wasn't um floundering as a leader of our chapter. But I will plug SACHOs again. So if you're in one of like the 3 dozen states with a SACHO, a state association for city and county health officials, we can be a great resource for you, especially in this context. Um, Being a SACHO makes it almost easy for me to be an administrator for this chapter. So use your SACHO if you have one.
Well, and to be honest with you, Kristen, you laid the groundwork. Almost every state chapter has the goal and mission to advocate for and get a grant for their state association or a university. Kristen, I mean, before we didn't have that MELF funding. Norm, the executive director, has a lot of credit, but you guys advocated to him. I mean, he was a local data collector as well, so he understood.
Yeah.
But maybe the transition of why a state association should hold the state library and play a leadership role. I mean, I don't know. Why did it work that well in Michigan?
I'd have to say that really it was the enthusiasm alone for the first years that really brought it. Like Marsha, our original leader or president, or forget the title, but our original leader. But the reason that I think it works with Melf is that Melf is already embedded into our public health infrastructure in other areas of public health. So, for example, we have our health officer committee, we have a public information officer committee, we have a emergency preparedness coordinator committee, and it was almost like a natural next step that we convene data collectors as well. So having Melf in other areas already connected to the folks at the state level, um, and already advocating for our needs in areas that are not specific to data collection really it really made sense. Like Gwen and Norm already have relationships built and just basically helped us organize our voice together so that we're able to approach the different groups at the state as a group now in a way that I don't think we really thought about before. Like, it's really almost like an invisible, like, oh, we're not, our assumption that we're not allowed to do that, but we absolutely are. And Mouth's really helped us harness that enthusiasm and energy and really coordinate us, I guess.
You know,
Yeah.
the state of I don't know, Gwen, if you want to say something more there too.
Oh, I
Um,
was going to echo Kristen's thoughts and say, yes, like start small and use connections that you already have and expand upon them.
Mhm.
That's the easiest way to kind of get started. I want to, Jake, before we like really move on, Elizabeth dropped a couple of questions in the chat that I want to get to. Elizabeth, I'm going to ask your second question first. What data skills should be considered essential for today's local public health workforce?
That's a really good question, and I have kind of two broad categories and answers. The first one I would say would be building processes and pipelines. That's one thing I've noticed in our work here in Michigan. Katarina chimed in from Wayne County, which is the county that holds Detroit, one of our largest local health departments, and it really having that space to be able to talk through not just what is this one measurement, but how do we build a process all the way from collecting the data to disseminating the visualization of that data. There's a whole life cycle in between that. And there's really a systems level perspective that it takes to produce what to the general public might just look like, oh, one number. So really taking that systems level approach and being able to visualize a life cycle of a data measure or a data process, I think is a really important skill that I wasn't necessarily taught in epi school. I don't know if there's other formal education that teaches that skill. But the other one I would say would be the more of a non-traditional skill, which would be advocacy and being able to speak up for our needs and not something that tends to be attached to technical and kind of scientific work like data collection. But absolutely, I would say that is essential. Thanks for that.
And well, I'm going to ask the other question as well. What indicators do you think LHDs rely on too heavily, and what are we missing?
Oh man. Okay, this one might be a bit of a hot take. So I'm just speaking for myself, not Mel or my organization. But I think since the pandemic, the pace of things or the demand for information has really the expectations from the public and um even from like state and federal organizations has been like ramped up exponentially. Um, we have an old model of having like one community health assessment kind of to cover all of the priorities of our jurisdiction. And I really think that is something that we, as we look forward as a field, kind of need to figure out a way to ramp that up so that we're able to streamline it, maybe automate some of it so that we're able to not just do one community health assessment, but do multiple. And I know that Kara from my health department's here, and we talk about that all the time. How do we systematize this? How do we automate it so that we're able to, in this 21st century landscape, produce the amount of information that's needed for very specific purposes. So I don't want, basically what I'm saying is that I think we need to be able to expand and be able to pivot more into specific needs rather than having one measure or one assessment encompasses all the needs.
Great, thank you. I think that's about perfect timing for me to pass it back to Jessica. What do you think, Jessica?
Yeah, sounds great. Let me just pop up the next slide for the main group. I can locate through everything. All right. Well, again, all right, let's see. I think you guys are seeing the right thing. Thank you so much, Cristin, for sharing. Um, that was, I mean, I think it's always really wonderful to see the overview and the momentum. There's so much momentum happening, and I really appreciated the way you framed it up for the group. So again, whether you've been involved or you're new, that was probably some new information for you. So I appreciate the grounding and where we've come and where we're going and everything good that's happened, and it's just going to keep getting better. So continue to join us. Um, as we continue to build the local health department Academy of Science. So I want to let you know that we are transitioning to a break. We're about 3 minutes ahead of schedule. I am going to set this timer and hope that technology works for us. Oh, okay, well, I can. And I do want to, whoops, I want to say a few things. So first and foremost, please take this time to take care of yourself. I know that you all have many priorities, but give yourself a small screen break if you can. So definitely take care of yourself. We're going to leave this meeting room open. I'm going to have this slide up, and we're going to start the timer so that you can see the kind of the countdown. I'll also give you a verbal prompt to let you know when we have 5 minutes left. So if you have it on in the background and you're not paying attention, don't worry, just listen for my voice. You're going to hear me say, hey, we have 5 minutes left. So kind of wrap up and get back on. One thing I want to note is because we're utilizing breakouts, we want to invite our breakout presenters into those spaces a little bit before. So if you're presenting or moderating a breakout, plan to transition in there at about 11:10. And so you will see the breakout option because we're going to self-select into them. I'm asking participants to hold off and not go into those rooms until we invite you in. If you come in, that's fine. You'll just get to see a little bit of setup. But if you can wait until we actually invite you to come into that room, then we would appreciate that. But we want to go ahead and get our speakers in early. So you're going to see the option. So I just wanted to note that. But please take your break, get your coffee, do whatever it is you need to do to feel good and be ready to engage in a breakout session. And I do think Emily was going to drop